guys, how's it going? It's Margaret, and welcome. Oh my gosh, welcome to the first ever Chatterbooks. I'm so excited. We had this idea in the International League of Thrifters. We started talking about books one day, and Maggie, who's on our panel, suggested that we start a book club, and I think it's an amazing idea. So let me have you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll go from there. So Maggie, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I'm Maggie Donapel, and I'm a member of the International League of Thrifters, and I've been selling books online since 1997, I think, and now I'm selling other things. But I'm also a huge cozy mystery fan, so this has been great for me. This, I was so excited to find the Jane Wheel series, so this combines both, my loves.
Awesome. And Tonya, you want to go next? We'll say Miss Fiffer for any end.
Hey guys, I'm Tonya, and I'm also a member of the International League of Thrifters. And what else do you want to know?
I guess that's it, just so they know who we are. And would you like to know?
Hi, I'm Sharon Fiffer, and I would like to be a member of the International League of Thrifters, but I am an author and a collector and a scavenger and a alley picker and all those things. And I write the Jane Wheel mysteries, and there are 8 in the series, and I think you're talking about Lucky Stuff today.
Yes, we are.
And I'm honored. I'm honored. Let me just say thank you. I'm honored to be the first book.
I was very excited about this one, about the book, because once Maggie suggested that we start the book club, I asked her, well, what do you think we should start with? And she suggested your book, and it fits so well. And then I just went on a whim, because I sent you a message and said, hey, you want to come hang out on our first one? And you said yes. I appreciate you coming. Okay, so I'm going to check my notes, because as you guys know, this is our first ever one, so there might be some bumps and hiccups along the way. But right now we have 16 live viewers. Hello, everybody watching. All right, so I'm going to go through the quick introduction of stuff, and then maybe we can say hi to people who are in the chat. So this is the first book club. This is a live online YouTube book club, and we have a live chat on the side. And we also have a Facebook group called Chatterbooks, where we discuss things between the two, between book clubs. Look at me, I'm flustered, y'all. So also, if you join the group on Facebook, we are planning on rotating the panelists each month. So if you're interested in coming on and being a panelist, let me know in the group, and we can make it happen. Okay, and we'll talk more about it at the end. Oh, I went out of order already. Gosh. Okay. So let's say hey in the chat. Tonya, do you want to say hey in the chat, or do you want me to go for it?
Okay, I'll do it. We have Angie, Glenda Brown, and let's see, Thrifting Life, Maggie Doodle, Carrie Carter, Diane Dodds, and I think that's about it.
All right, those are just the ones that I've said hey. All right, so, gosh, I feel so nervous, you guys. I've just got to calm down.
You're doing great.
Let's just get it out there. Okay, so we talked about the intro. Okay, so Sharon Fiffer, she's a writer and also a teacher, right? You teach writing workshops, is that right?
I do. I teach writing, and I used to teach at the University of Illinois at Chicago. I also taught at Northwestern University, and now my husband and I, he is a nonfiction writer, Steve Fiffer, and he and I teach adult workshops actually in our living room. And we started off teaching 1, and now we're teaching 4. We had a waiting list, so we've increased it. So we teach 4 adult writing workshops a week.
That's so cool.
It is a lot of fun.
When I was teaching, there was a Margaret, I don't know if y'all are familiar with it, it was Margaret Root Brown writing series, imprint series here that they would do for teachers, and so I went to a couple of those writing workshops. It was so fun. I'm not a writer, but but it was really cool, And so we read the book Lucky Stuff this month, and that's one of the series. There's 8 in the series. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'll be holding things up. In fact, I have stuff all around me to hold up if I need to. But the first book was Killer Stuff, And that was published in 2001. And then it's killer stuff, dead guy stuff, the wrong stuff, buried stuff, Hollywood stuff, scary stuff, backstage stuff, and lucky stuff. So you see there's a theme.
Yeah, yeah. It was really, I really enjoyed it. Okay, and then one more thing about you before we move on. So I started reading the book because I like to read a lot, but because I'm a mom and I got sick this week, I went ahead and got the audiobook as well. And when I did that, I realized your daughter narrates the audiobook.
Yes, as a matter of fact, she was just here at lunchtime with her little daughter, Rootsie, my granddaughter, and she said, I said, I'm going to have to look over the book real quickly because I might not remember who did it or even who got done, because, it's been a while. And Nora said, would you like me to read it to you?
Aww.
So she's an actress here in Chicago, and she's been at several things, and she does theater here, and she got her degree at NYU. So that's my plug for Nora Pfeiffer. So she's a wonderful actress. And when they sold the audiobook rights, I suggested, I said, can anybody audition to read the books? And so I suggested her, which was very exciting to us to have a collaboration.
Absolutely, and she did a fantastic job.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm an aspiring audiobook actress, but
there you go.
Great at that, Margaret.
I did one on my other channel. I read this is not supposed to be about
The
me.
Velvet Rabbit or something?
The Velveteen Rabbit, just like a practice one. So I'm looking at doing some more of that. But anyway, let's get on with the book. All right. Okay, so we're going to ask the questions, and then we'll talk about it. And then also in the chat, make sure you're answering the questions as well, because we'll read out the kind of the comments that you have as well. So during reading the book, Maggie and Tonya, and Sharon, I guess too, who was your favorite character in the book, and why was that person your favorite character? Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go first. I loved Detective O. I just thought he was, what he reminded me of? I don't know if you've ever read any of the books by Dorothy Gilman.
Mm-mm.
She wrote the Mrs. Palafax Mysteries, but she always had these characters that are so thoughtful and say things that are thought-provoking. He's just so calm and reasonable, and I just really liked. I really liked him.
Yeah, he was really cool. How about you, Tonya?
I liked Nellie.
Everybody likes Nellie.
Yeah, she just tells it like it is and doesn't put up with any smack from anybody, and I like her style.
Right, she had that way. I mean, because there are people, they say what's on their mind, but then you just don't like them. But then with Nellie, like, she just tells it like it is, but you can't help but love her anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I was thinking about answering this question myself, I didn't even think about Detective O, but I really did. Every time he entered into the story, I was so happy to see him. So, and I know he doesn't factor as much in this one. From reading the bios and stuff, he's in more of the other books. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's
so I may have to go back and read just to see him some more.
I think you do. I think you definitely do. I'm so interested to hear these answers because, I guess I know this is coming up as a question, but I'll jump ahead. Someone asked, or one of the questions was about, do I know how autobiographical are the books, or do I know people? Well, my real parents, owned a tavern in Kankakee, Illinois called the Easy Way In, and their names were Don and Nellie. Now, when I started writing Killer Stuff, I fully intended to change the names of everything, but Easy Way In, you just can't do better than a tavern named the Easy Way In. And really, Don and Nellie are so Don and Nellie to me. My father passed away several years ago, but my mother, when I wrote Killer Stuff, she was still alive then. She passed away 10 years ago, but 10 years ago now. But she, when I wrote Killer Stuff, Nellie is a lot edgier and a lot harsher in some ways. And my husband read the manuscript and said, you're kind of tough on Nellie. And I said, yeah, but I'm going to redeem her in the next book, because Dead Guy Stuff, the second one I already knew, was going to be her book. And so I told my mother when the books came out, I said, you know, Mom, I wrote this book. It's coming out. It's going to be published. It's, you know, and she was like, you know, why don't you get a real job? You know, kind of really get to work. And I said, you don't come off that well in killer stuff, but you're going to be great in dead guy stuff. And she said, oh, hell, honey, I don't give a damn. I'm not going to read it. Which was really, you know, and it was true. She kept them out on her coffee table, and I would read her parts, and she loved, you know, when I wrote about the easy way in, but she was not a big, you know, reader or fan, and she wondered what I was doing with all the junk all the time. So
yeah. Oh, wow. Do you have pictures too of the easy way in?
I do.
That's a good. And then we'll look in the chat and we'll say.
Can you see? I don't know. Can you see this? This is a picture of the easy way in on the 35th. I'll hold it up, and when I tell the 35th anniversary party that we threw as a surprise for them, and we were driving past the easy way in, saying that we were going to dinner. And it was closed on Sundays, and my dad said, we did this on purpose. He said, what are all those cars doing there? Oh, my God. And he thought the bartender was throwing a shindig without, you know, pull into the drive. You know, so we pulled in, and they were surprised, and it was the most touching. I mean, my father cried. My mother said, who the hell's going to clean this up? But this is a picture that a friend of mine took from out in the middle of the street on top of a van. I don't know whether you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
But the easy way in was a shack. It was just a tiny little shack, and my dad rented it. He always rented the building, but he owned the business. So inside, it was great. But outside, it was a mess. And because it was across from Roper Stove Factory, and they always thought that Roper would buy that piece of property. They never did, and they left and went out of business. But here's a picture of the real Don and Nellie.
Oh, nice.
And that was, yeah, that was at that party. So that was in.
Could we see that again?
Yeah.
Sharon, just hold up again real quick.
Am I holding it in the right place?
Yeah, that's great. Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Love it.
So that was so it was certainly based on them, and in terms of characters, I did a talk in Kankakee actually for a book group a couple of years ago, and I composed a quiz. Which Jane Wheel character are you? And people had to answer, you know, multiple choice, and then it was amazing. People either wanted to be Detective O, but most people were Nellie. And I thought, maybe it's just Kankakee. Maybe she wasn't as unique as we all thought.
Yeah. That's really cool. I'd like to take that quiz.
I'll send it to you. I'll send you a document after this is all over.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have it on there somewhere.
Maybe, can I share it in the group if anyone else wants to take it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so in the chat, it looks like Casey Lakeman, as far as favorite characters, was Nellie. Thrifting Live, Nellie. Kim says Nellie. Thrifting Live says she was so funny, and I think we all have someone in our lives that we can relate to. And Treasure Find says, I think it's awesome that you used your parents' names. Let's see. I know I'm missing somebody. It just jumped. Uh-oh. Casey Lakeman says, I love that Don and Nellie together. Their relationship's really sweet. Am I missing anything else? And then Nevada said that they look exactly like I pictured them while reading the book.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. You know, no one ever says Jane Wheel. I want to know why no one ever says Jane Wheel. You know, the character closest to my persona, she's out of luck. You know, nobody, you know, she just sees the world through her eyes, but, you know, she never gets to be the fave.
Maybe because the other ones seem like they've got it, whether they have it together or not, like Detective O and Nellie, they seem like they've got it figured out, even if it's their own way. You know?
That's true. I also think in writing, you know, and this applies to any kind of a book, not just a mystery, but when you have a point of view character. Someone had asked about me writing in the first person, and actually the books are not in the first person. They're in third person, but they're in close third person. So the story is through Jane's eyes for the most part. And in some of the other books, I actually do a chapter where it's Tim Lowry's chapter, where it's Detective O's chapter. But yeah, I think in Lucky Stuff, it's all Jane. It's through her eyes. And I think when you see a story play out through one character's eyes, you become kind of that character, and you're studying the other characters like she is or he is. And I think maybe that's why. So I'm not going to take it personally that no one ever picks Jane.
Well, I think it would be. I think I need to read one of the other books now because I do want to get in, you know, kind of get inside some of the other characters' heads and see how their thought process on things. That would be cool.
Yeah, because you don't even get to meet. You don't get to meet her ex-husband Charlie. You know, she's married when the series starts out. Oh. And I had a reader come up to me at a mystery conference and said, "I'm so sorry about your divorce." And I said, "I'm not divorced. I'm happily married." And she said, "Well, you know, with Jane and all." And I said, "No, that's it's really fiction. Just because Don and Nellie are real in my head, it's still all fiction, you know. And I've never found a dead body, so it's really all fiction." So.
But I so hoped, I read the first book first, and I just so hoped that by the end of the book, she would get back together.
Oh. Yeah, well, people have come
to the last page to see if his name was on the last page. So.
Oh, Charlie keeps coming up. Somebody came up to me and said, "I don't know why you couldn't work it out." And Charlie's such a good guy. And I said, "Well, you know, remember this is fiction. Now keep in mind these are fictional characters. But the other thing is, when I started writing the Jane Wheel book, to be perfectly serious, I didn't know it was going to be a mystery. Killer Stuff started out with the title Stuff, and it was about a woman who was having kind of a midlife crisis and really started to fill up some of the holes in her life with stuff. And she was also trying to replace a lot of her childhood that she really missed, and she felt Nellie had kind of dismissed or taken away from her. And it really isn't until Buried Stuff that you really see, I'm really pushing for the whole series, but by Buried Stuff, you really see that Jane and her mother are so much more alike than they are different. But Jane doesn't want that. Jane doesn't see that, and she doesn't. And so I wanted to create, you know, this arc, this problem for her. And really, I kind of had to make her go through some of this stuff with Charlie because I really had to force her into growing up and facing herself a little bit. And the reason it ended up being in a mystery is because it's just so much more interesting to me as a writer to give a problem outside of oneself. Because if you don't, you end up with a lot of interior monologue and not much story. And I wanted Jane to have a problem outside of herself to solve, and along the way discover who she really was and why she couldn't kind of fill that need on her own.
Nice.
Could I ask another question?
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite authors is Ella Montgomery, who wrote the Anne of Green Gables series.
Yes.
And she wrote in her journals that she could not control her characters. That no matter what she wanted them to do, they would ultimately do something else, and she would have to rewrite it. Do you find that sometimes your characters do their own thing, or do you really think you have complete control?
I don't think I have complete control because I think I would lose that sense of freshness if I did. Many authors make very complete outlines of the stories. I have a general outline. I generally know what's going to happen, but then I have to let the characters play together a little bit. I particularly never know what's going to come out of Nellie's mouth. I really don't, because it's more fun that way. It's more fun to have Nellie challenge Jane. And it's more fun, actually, I feel the same way with Tim Lowry, her best friend, because he pushes her too, from a different angle and from a different place, but he certainly pushes her, especially about, you know, her junking and his more ethereal collecting. You know, he's got much more taste, he's got much more money, he's got much more, you know, and Jane is much more she adopts things that nobody else wants a lot, you know, which, I mean, she likes the old and the worn and the used, which I also, Detective O was a kind of a surprise to me because when I created him, I didn't really know who he was going to turn out to be. But the fact that he has this feeling for oh, I don't know, wisdom and kind of the wabi-sabi, you know, the old and the worn and the beauty of that. But he has non-attachment. He's so detached from stuff. It's just the perfect foil for her. So they did sort of surprise me. So yes, I would have to say that I have limited control, I guess is my answer.
Awesome. Okay, so the next question I had was, how would you react if your stuff was really gone? If something like that happened to you?
Well, I wouldn't react well. I would react badly, I think. But, you know, I played around with that. In Lucky Stuff, it was a big risk to have, for those of you who haven't finished the book, you know, spoiler alert, but Jane does lose track of her stuff. And in a whirlwind kind of move. And when that happens, or when that happened in the book, I knew that I was taking a chance with my readers, because as much as my readers like mysteries or they like character-driven domestic stories or whatever, they like the stuff. And I get emails all the time. You know, I get emails all the time like, why doesn't Jane collect salt cellars? Have you ever thought about salt cellars? They're a really good collectible. Or why doesn't Jane? So, you know, I knew that if I didn't have as much stuff in this book, there could be trouble. You know, trouble in Jane Wheelland. But I had to play with that because I had to see what would happen if Jane had a blank slate. And I was so delighted. In fact, I'll send a picture. I went to Kankakee. I had to go to Kankakee for something a few weeks ago, and I took a picture of the factory that I based the button factory on. And I'll post that picture because when you see where Jane kind of ends up, and the kind of, I mean, obviously she doesn't really get the button factory. I wish I could, and it's not a button factory, as a matter of fact. But I made it a button factory. But when she gets that kind of blank slate, it's like that freedom, that wonderful feeling of like, oh my gosh, I can start over. You know, I have all these things. I'm surrounded right now by things I gathered around me to show you. And I'm thinking, I'm looking down and I've got all these crocheted pot holders, which I used to love. I mean, I still love them. I'm looking at them now. I haven't looked at them in a year. And I'm looking at them thinking, oh yeah, that's right. I love those things. But frankly, now I'm interested in other kinds of things. And so I wondered what would happen if you had that kind of blank slate. What would you start with? For Maggie, who read Killer Stuff, from Killer Stuff, Jane uses flower pots, or she likes those like McCoy or flower pots like these. And hold that up again, Margaret. What was it? Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. Okay. Oh, see, this is bad. This could become a dangerous habit. But anyway, this is a Shawnee. It's not McCoy. But for those of you looking at it saying that isn't a McCoy, I know it's Shawnee, but it was the most reachable. And I do a thing in Killer Stuff where the part of the mystery is solved because of these flower pots, and that's really what I started looking for at rummage sales and stuff like that, because I liked them. I really liked the way they looked. I liked the colors. I liked the shapes. They seemed happy to me, and I just loved them. So, but now would I start with flower pot? I mean, that's what led me into kind of other stuff. I'd always had collections of things, I guess, around, but that was the first real thing I started looking for. But maybe it wouldn't be now. Maybe I would go to books. I collect a lot more books now. I collect a lot more, and so I wanted Jane Wheel to have that opportunity, to kind of see the world through new eyes.
Right, right. How about you, Maggie? What would you do if suddenly all of your stuff was just gone?
This book was so timely for me because we just sold our house after 28 years. And so I have just gone through the process of that whole thing of packing everything up. And we did get rid of a lot of stuff, but I have 30 boxes of books sitting in a storage shed that we had to buy to house them. And I just thought, I can't imagine. I would be devastated. I think because I I truly believe that somewhere all of the characters in all the books that I've read exist.
Yeah.
They're there.
I love you. I love you.
And I can go back and see them. So I read books and I reread books, and I just feel like if I were to lose them, wow, I would lose all those. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just felt like in this book it was about the stuff, and then it was about the memories, and how stuff is related to the memory. And also, I loved when, Jane talked about the stories, people's stories. And then Nellie said, well, what the hell do you care about other people's stories?
Yeah.
But I think all of us and everybody in the chat, I think we all love the fact that stories come along with the stuff, and then we have the fortune to pass those stories on. I think we all probably love passing things along to people who will love them.
Yeah.
And also love the stories that come with them.
And I know my friend Ken, he sells a lot of really cool stuff he gets at auctions, and sometimes he, not want to say fabricate, but he tells a story with the item that he's selling, to give it some history, even if it's somewhat, imagine yourself in an old factory and here's the doorknob or whatever, How about you, Tonya? What if all of your treasures were just gone?
I think that at first I would probably be panicking, but I think that eventually I might come to see, like y'all do and people in the chat, that it might be kind of refreshing, like a brand new start. I know she said that it's easier to let go of it, when you're not seeing it, when it's not in your sight. So, and that's so true.
Yeah, yeah. What are they saying in the chat about that? Did you see somebody?
Oh, that might have been mine that made that noise.
Oh, it probably was mine, and I'm not sure how to stop it without stopping hearing the chat. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought I asked the Treasure Find says she's agreeing with Maggie that she thinks that characters in books that she reads, she loves the characters in books and believes that they're really out there and someday she'll run into them. Yeah.
I think we do, by the way. I think we do. I think, a really good book that's the kind of connection you should have with it, I think. And I do think those people are out there. I think I'm not saying I'm channeling. Well, in my case, I do know that some of those people are really out there, but Don and Nellie were really out there. But I think that's really important. I think that's what stories give us. Stories give us shape to our lives. They give us connections to other experiences. I mean, I know that I value reading and people who are readers and people who love books because we share those kinds of experiences. We're open to that kind of other lives and other stories, and that's truly important.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Oh, before we jump to the next question, Maggie, I'm with you about Ellen Montgomery. I listen to the Anne series at least once a year, all the way through. And when I was teaching, it was such a relief to hear Anne having some of the same problems teaching that I was. I was like, see, it's like 100 years later.
Same problem.
Yes.
And she has just characters that I love in your book, Sharon. The characters are so defined. They're not all the same. They're not cookie cutter characters. They all have such distinct personalities that makes it so much fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the chat and here, when did you guys figure out it's sort of a whodunit, like whodunit, like how early did you figure it out? Maggie, what about you?
I didn't. Until it was
even after it was over, right?
And at one point, I was taking notes because I wanted to make sure I remember things to talk about, and I wrote that Lucky is boing boing. Like I thought at one point that he was. That there was some kind of a switch that happened, and he really, that Dickie Boynton was really alive, and so no.
I'm so glad you said that because I did too. Okay, go on. I'm sorry.
It was a mystery to me until the end, which is a good thing.
How about you, Tonya?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Yeah, you messaged me. She's like, okay, what about Ruth? What about?
I just really wasn't too sure. Was it Sam? I mean, I'm not sure.
Well,
Yeah.
Sam, you mean you're not sure even now?
Right. Kind of like.
Well, Sam certainly, yeah. Sam switched the EpiPen. I mean, he doctored the EpiPens, or I think. Yes, Sam was at fault. I mean, because he. But it was kind of accidental. I mean, my death isn't. I don't write gory mysteries, and I don't write serial killers, and I don't write. Although I've had some creepier characters in some of the books. In this one in particular, it really wasn't about that. It was really much more of an accidental. It was more of an accidental death in this. But Lucky was a con man. I mean, certainly, and so he was conning the town, but he wasn't Dickie Boynton. I mean, he wasn't Boing Boing. He was right. Just remembering this kind of thing that happened to him. That his friend died. But the terrible thing that happened to Lucky was that his parents killed him off for insurance money. I mean, they faked his death. And so when they faked his death, that was the trauma of him not being able to be himself. I mean, in a sense, he was killed. So the kind of reinvention of himself as Lucky was appropriate in a sense, to who he was. Yeah. So it was a little... it was a little more psychological drama in that, but there's a place in Kankakee that has that actually has that house used to be there, that little scary house right on the river with a driveway that went down, and we would pass it a lot. It was on a busy street. And I would look down there and think, I would hate to live in that house, because when you go down into that garage, which was really more of a boathouse, because on the other end, you push I thought it was a garage, but it was a boathouse, and you could drive into the river, or something terrible could happen. And every year when I was a kid growing up in Kankakee, it feels like every year some child or teenager drowned in the Kankakee River. Every year somebody would try to swim the river. Every year something would happen. And I just remembered that as being a real tragedy that used to happen. And it felt like it was a horrible thing. So somehow I wanted to, kind of delve into that a little bit. But in terms of figuring out the mystery, I would say that in 3 of the books, they're much more plotted like mysteries in that sense, and the other 5 are much more, there's a problem that happens, there's a crime that occurs, they're crime fiction, but they're much more about the people involved and them solving their own problems. So don't feel bad, Tonya. Sometimes it's just impossible to know. In fact, in one of the books, and I won't tell you which one, in one of the books, you think someone has been murdered all the way through, and at the end you find out they're not. And I say they because I don't want you to know whether it's a male or female character.
Well, I think Tonya kind of had, because Ruthie did kind of push Sam, a bit. So,
yeah.
Like, absolutely. You need to do this, and then you can get the you'll blackmail him and
right,
co-conspirator sort of. Okay, so yeah, I was with Maggie. I was really thinking there was a switcheroo, that he grew up, and that's why he got sent off, that he was really boing boing.
I just liked saying boing boing. I just loved that nickname, and that was a total surprise. That name just came as I was typing. So that's one of the surprises. For some reason, I just like the idea of a character named Boing Boing, and something terrible happened to him, but you still say his name, which is so silly, and yet it's something terrible. So I like the juxtaposition.
Right. Okay, so over in the chat, they're saying Carrie Carter said me neither. Nellie didn't know. Jeannie, she thought the same thing. I think about the switcheroo. Is that what you mean? Kim says me too. Yes, me too. I think they're saying maybe about the switch. I thought the same thing. Casey Lakeman says treasure find. Same here. And Diana says, not until the end. I thought the same thing. They were all stumped. Dewana stumped me too. I didn't know till the end. But Nellie says, I did wonder about the girl in the window. So, okay, next up. Oh, I kind of went together with that one. So there were a few ongoing mysteries. I said there was like the mystery of what happened with Sluggo, and then with Lucky Stuff. I guess I didn't know where I was going with that question. I guess I was jotting down notes. But there were a few kind of mysteries that were going along simultaneously, I guess.
Well, they were trying to, remember that Lucky was very superstitious. And speaking of superstitious, I'm seeing a cat on the screen. I don't know whether anyone else is,
Sorry.
No, I love it. Anyway, Lucky was superstitious, and they were playing with him in a sense. So there were things going on, but nobody really meant to kill him. I mean, that murder was not really on the menu in this one, so that was part of the the other mysteries or the other problems that were. And Nellie, she just thought somebody was up to no good, so it was like, I'm going to investigate, I'm going to make you investigate this. So
yeah. Okay, so here's a fun one. I'm sorry, Maggie, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay, so if you were going to make a movie of this, we can ask everybody what they think. I kind of asked you, I say all the questions in advance, but in the chat too, let us know. Who would you cast in a movie? Who would you cast? Let's start with Jane.
Oh.
Who would you pick to play Jane?
I
me?
know.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, not me. Don't ask me. I'm sorry.
And I'm not a movie guy. I have not a thought in my head about that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a movie watcher or even TV watcher. Sorry.
Hey, Tonya, did you give any thought to that one?
For Nellie?
No, who would play Jane? Who do you think would play
Jane. Oh, gosh. I don't know. I have to think about it a little more.
She's in her 40s. Would you say she's like in her 40s in this one?
Yes, but she could be younger.
Younger?
It would be fine. It would be fine. Make her younger. No, I was out in LA and several years ago, and we pitched the Jane Wheel books when there were 4 of them as a TV series, as a mini series. And at the time, no one was mentioned, no one was attached, but I had seen. You know who Terry Hatcher is?
Yeah.
Well, I had seen Terry Hatcher on The Tonight Show, and she had talked about loving to go to yard sales and garage sales. And she had said that she and her daughter drove around every Saturday morning. They never used a newspaper. They just followed signs. And so I thought, I've got to get the books to her, because I wouldn't mind if Jane Wheel if my surrogate was played by Terry Hatcher. Good. That would be great,
Yeah.
And when we talked about it out in California, of course, no, we didn't mention anybody, and I would have taken anybody they had, but it obviously it didn't go anywhere, so it never got made. I mean, I still have high hopes, but I always thought of someone really petite with short hair, because Nellie's always complaining about Jane's hair, so I thought it had to be somebody who was always getting her hair cut and trying to find the right haircut for herself. But as far as I'm concerned, Jane Wheel is, all ages. So Nellie, it would be a little harder to cast, I think.
What are they saying in the chat, Tonya? Who are they?
Diane Lane, Jennifer Aniston, Ellen Pompeo.
Oh my goodness! These are great suggestions. Surely one of you has a link to Hollywood.
Right. Nellie says Hallmark Channel would be good. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say they're also talking in the chat, and Hallmark has a whole movies and mysteries channel where they are now making the movies from a lot of different mystery series.
Yes, they are, and they actually have the garage sale murders or something. And I've had several people write to me and say, "Is that Jane Wheel? Is that Jane?" And it's not, but they were based. I looked up the book, and the book, I believe, I'm not quite sure about this, but I think the book they based at least the first one on was a self-published book, which they probably didn't have to, pay much for the rights. They wouldn't have, believe me, if anyone's listening, you don't have to pay me much for the rights either. Just let's get it out there. So it would depend. I mean, Hallmark we pitched it to the USA Network at the time because they were actually looking for a female counterpoint to Monk. If you remember that series,
yeah.
Monk.
Yes.
They were actually looking for that, so they invited us to a meeting. But as I say, it didn't go anywhere. But I would, if Jane Wheel belongs on Hallmark or wherever she belongs, I think she belongs on HGTV. I think I do. I think they ought to do some original programming the way AMC did Mad Men. I think HGTV, right between Fixer Upper and Property Brothers, I want Jane Wheel to get in there.
I loved Mad Men. It was such a good series.
Yes, it was.
All right, so there were some more suggestions in the chat for the casting. We're casting this movie now. Sandra Bullock is on the table. Maura Tierney, I'm not sure I'm saying that right.
Oh, I would love Maura Tierney. Great.
And then Nevada, Kim, and Tonya have all said maybe Winona Ryder. So
perfect. And she has that shoplifting history that would help, Just saying,
Okay, so now who would you cast? I have somebody that I think I would cast for Lucky. Who would you guys cast for Lucky? I was thinking Danny DeVito. I mean,
oh yeah.
Oh, he would be good.
He would be good. He would be good. And in another direction, Ed Begley Jr. might be good for Lucky. Yeah. I mean, kind of, because he can play a little goofy, but and is also very appealing. Has a lot of heart,
Yeah. I pictured him taller than Danny DeVito, but still. Kim Wynn says maybe Tim White. I'm not sure I know who that is. I'm going to have to Google that one.
Who? For who?
For Lucky.
Tim who?
Tim White. I got to Google Tim White. I'm trying to think of who else. Because I kind of picture like a gravelly kind of guy, I don't know. Anyway. Okay, how about Nellie then? I like playing this game. Maybe I'm the only one.
Oh no, every writer plays this game, I'll tell you.
I didn't give this much thought. Nellie was really, Vigo, come on. Carrie says Vigo is Lucky. Vigo could play anything.
How about for Nellie, somebody, do you remember the, see, all the actresses, unfortunately, that I think of for Nellie have passed away. Like, I think of Nancy Walker. Remember Nancy Walker? She played Rhoda's mother. Yeah, that kind of tough talking. Or if Danny DeVito is going to play Lucky, maybe Rhea Perlman, his wife would play Nellie. But I think of Nellie as that not young, but tiny, feisty, a ball of fire. And
I picture her like Sophia on
Golden Girls.
Golden Girls, who's also passed away.
Yeah. So we need some new older actresses. So some younger, older actresses to step in as Nellie.
Well, with Thrifting Life, Carrie, Carter, and Tonya have all suggested Meryl Streep. We can play anybody.
Get it to Meryl Streep. That'll be fun.
I think she could play anybody, honestly.
Right.
That's right.
Plus, she'd be good for ratings.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay, here we go.
Someone else in the chat says Kathy Bates.
Yes.
Kathy Bates. Gray hair. That
would be good. Well, what about for who would you cast as Tim? Tim Lowry, because I've got somebody in mind for Tim Lowry.
Nathan Lane.
Nathan Lane, younger and blonder.
Oh, let's see. Alexander Skarsgård?
Well, there's nothing wrong with meeting him on set, of course.
Right?
I'm thinking of Doogie Howser.
yeah.
Wouldn't he be great? His name is I'm blank right now. But
Neil Patrick Harris.
Yes, Neil Patrick Harris. And in fact, I thought that when his series finished, I thought maybe I should get the books to him, and Tim Lowry can be the hero, and it would be a great series for him. But I haven't done that yet either.
No.
So anybody out there, get it to him, Neil Patrick Harris.
You never know. Just send him a message. I sent you a message. You said yes.
That's right.
Okay. So the next question. Boy, these are going. We've got a lot of still questions to ask, and not a lot of time. But that's okay if we go over. Oh, now I've lost it. So the next question was, what do you collect? So in the chat, you can tell us too. Pick a couple.
Okay. I collect anything with numbers or letters. Now, I'm not. This is a jar of dice. Now, it's not because I love dice, but I like numbers. I like graphics. I like print. So I like things with. But I mean, not just books. I like things that somehow I like numbered keys and things like that. But I also, just a minute. These are. This is a basket of crocheted. They're falling all out. But this is a basket of handmade crocheted pot holders, which, you know what? It'd probably be easier if I lifted the computer, right?
You want me to share the pictures? I have the pictures you sent.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. But do you see this pot holder with the grapes? Can you see that?
Oh,
well, yeah. Used to make in the 50s or 40s. Maybe even the 30s, they would crochet over bottle caps and make trivets that were bunches of grapes. I'm sure you've seen them in your travels. Mm-hmm. Well, in Killer Stuff, I talk about that a lot. And for a while, I couldn't go to a signing without somebody coming up and opening her purse and handing me a crocheted trivet or a crochet pot holder, which was absolutely lovely and charming, and I've kept them all. But I said, I should have had her loving diamonds.
Right.
Because I have a lot of handmade crochet, which I'm happy to adopt and care for, but it's not necessarily something that's going to help me in my retirement. But I wanted to show something in particular that is kind of unique. I talk about buttons a lot, and I never saw myself as a button collector. I never expected to be a button collector. I liked sewing things, and I'm a big knitter, so I always pick up knitting needles and wooden knitting needles and stuff. But buttons, I wasn't that interested. But I loved Bakelite, and I couldn't afford any Bakelite. I'd see bracelets and pins and things like that, but I couldn't afford them. I mean, I'm really cheap, and I don't have a lot of expendable income. So, since I'm not reselling it, I would see Bakelite and I couldn't afford it. But then I bought a button box for some reason because I thought they were cool looking. And I started looking through them and realized that I had some Bakelite cookies, which were the two-colored Bakelite buttons, and I loved them. So I found one of those yin yang book Bakelite buttons, which I use in Killer Stuff. A lot of this stuff is used in the earlier books. So anyway, so I always look for buttons. I always look for sewing collectibles, knitting stuff. I look for books. I look for modern first editions, but I also look for beautiful old books. I mean, I don't really care. I have a collection of old medical books that I just bought because nobody else bought them, and I thought somebody should have them. So I have them, if you know of anybody who's interested. But here's an example of something that I bought because nobody, it was in the basement of an estate at an estate sale, and I bought these very cheaply, and I didn't know I loved them until I saw them. Can you see them? They're wooden clubs, like exercise clubs, like juggling clubs.
Cool.
And so I have them in the window with some plants, and they're beautiful to me. The old wood is beautiful to me. And I thought to myself, I'm really not a collector of old exercise equipment, not even new exercise equipment, and certainly not these kind of pins or clubs. But there was something so beautiful about the design, and because they actually even had the 1.5 pound sign on them, I thought, well, I have to have those. And that's an example of something I would never know that I collected them, but you can bet that if I saw these somewhere, again, I would get more. I love them, and so I think that it probably happens for all of you. You don't know what you collect until you get there. Is that the case?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. How about you, Maggie?
Oh, obviously books, old books, and children's books. I mean, I started on eBay by I was in a book. Back then it was called Listserv. It was an email group called Listserv that was devoted to Ellen Montgomery, and somebody mentioned that they had a first edition of Anne of Green Gables on eBay, and I went to look at it, and that's when I discovered eBay, and all of the books there that I remembered from my childhood. And so when I'm out at yard sales or thrift shops, I'm always collecting old books, old children's books that I remember. And now I like pictures of people from way back when. I think my last life I lived in the Victorian era, and I just buying things related to that.
Yeah. How about you, Tonya?
Well, I love the taxidermy. I have quite a little collection going. My husband is just thrilled about it. So they're all in my eBay room. I can't have them anywhere else in the house, but so I have them all in my eBay room. I love the milk glass and the sunburst gold mirrors.
Yeah. Those are nice.
How about you, Margaret?
Well, I have a collection of nesting dolls. I always say it wrong. Matroshka. I don't know. I'm saying it wrong. And then I'm the same way. Like I'll see something and I have to have it. Usually it's quirky, weird stuff like an elephant button or just like a weird, unusual thing.
Yeah.
That just like all of a sudden I have to have it. Pardon.
Well, you know, I children's books are. I have a lot of children's books. Maggie, I collect those too, and now especially since I have some grandkids, and so I've collected all these wonderful children's books, and I realize it's going to be a problem because some of them I'm not sure that they're going to be the ones I want the grandchildren to read because I want to protect all these beautiful illustrations, so I'm going to have to find some middle ground on that. And then there's also what was I going to say? There was something else. That I'm wearing. I like charms. I don't know whether you can see. Oh, yeah. And I actually have Nellie's. Nellie was very fond of St. Jude, the patron of hopeless cases, which was perfect for Nellie. So I have Nellie's St. Jude medal, but I also have a medal of Yellowstone Park, with a little deer on it. So I mean, I like little things that I can carry with me or hold with me sometimes, little talismans and tokens. So lucky stuff was kind of in my wheelhouse for that too. That's awesome.
Tonya, do you want me to do the chat or do you want to talk about what people are collecting in the chat?
You go ahead. I'm sorry, I wasn't looking.
No, that's okay. Treasure Finds says, pardon me, I put a cough drop in, so if it's clicking around. She says, my mom has a round tin full of buttons that I used to love looking at when I was young. I bet she has Bakelite buttons in there. I need to look when I visit my mom sometime. And that reminds me, too, when you said it was called a cookie, I love that. That makes me want them. You know?
Of course. I'll show you one.
I need some button cookies.
Let's see. There's a Bakelite cookie right there.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, of course. Now you'll see them. Now you'll look for them. Now I have more competition.
Right? Carrie Carter says she loves children books, especially pop-ups. I feel like I skipped somebody. Mm-hmm. Dewana said she collects domed silhouette pictures. Ooh, cool. Yeah, those are nice. And Angie says she loves the taxidermy too. And then Angie reminded me that I also collect they're little music boxes, the see-through ones that you wind, to play the music. Or also, like if it's a broken jewelry box, the mechanisms. I'm a sucker for them.
I used to have some of those. I don't know. I mean, in fact, I probably still do. Nothing goes, but I just don't know where they are. But yeah, I get it.
They're wonderful. Okay, and then Casey Legman says she collects furniture. She has a Fabo 2-seater bench. I won it at an auction for $30. Nice. Okay, we're going to go over 2 o'clock. Is that okay with you guys?
I'll have to scoot out by 2:15.
Okay, we'll try to pick up the pace then. Treasure Finds also says that I love Halloween stuff. Okay.
Oh, scary stuff. You have to. Yeah. That's all the Halloween collectibles are in this book. Scary stuff.
Okay, so here are some questions for Sharon, and then. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to squish it together. Charles Tatum in the group asks, I'd like to know if the author has a giant pre-planned story arc for her character spanning several novels, or does she decide from book to book what happens to her? You kind of answered a little bit about knowing you're going to do something with Nellie in the next book. And
right. Well, I do. I always knew that Jane Wheel was going to have to find some peace. And she was going to, you know, she's on this treasure hunt and search, and if it's symbolic of anything, it's trying to find some kind of satisfaction and some kind of happiness and some kind of purpose. And so, yeah, that was all. That was definitely part of that arc. And so I knew that she was going to have to go through discovering things about herself, but also about her mother, and also about her relationships and what she really treasured in relationships, and what treasure hunting really meant, in a sense, to her. And at one point, and I'm not sure in which book, but it's either one or two, Don says to her father says to her, you know, you have this hole that you're trying to fill up with stuff, and it's never going to be enough. And Jane had to, you know, my feeling about Jane was she was going to have to realize that as much as she might love it all, it was never going to be enough, and she was going to have to find something else. And I just want to say, in terms of collecting things, I did the first estate sale I ever went to. It was at the end of the day, and there was nothing left except for a box of what I thought were frames. And I was looking through these frames thinking, you know, I was there, I was just kind of trying to be polite. I'd walked in, and there were old wedding pictures. Oh. And I thought to myself, isn't there somebody in this family that could have taken these wedding pictures? Maybe they didn't want to keep them, but they could have destroyed them or whatever. But, you know, it just seemed dreadful to me. So, of course, I bought them. And I brought them home, and I started, you know, collecting old wedding photos, because I just felt terrible about the fact that no one wanted them. And I remember thinking to myself that, you know, my own children were going to someday have to go through my things, and they were going to be so confused. So I started having boxes that said NOF, not our family. Because, you know, it's like, why does Mom have all these pictures of so-and-so's baseball game, and it wasn't, you know, anybody we know? So I think that, I don't know exactly where I was going with this, I guess, but part of her arc is realizing that as much as she's got a big heart and she wants to adopt things, but I wanted to also make her realize that she couldn't really, that wasn't going to fulfill her needs if she didn't face her own family and face her own responsibilities and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Some of the questions we kind of already answered. You talked about your first person point of view, and it wasn't exactly
close third. It's a close third point of view.
And we've already talked about the real people in the book and their, you know, landmarks that were mentioned. So, okay, I'm going to kind of skip down. Oh, gosh, I'm getting the spinning ball of death. Okay, here it comes.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
All right, so Cynthia Strayer Villarreal wants to know, how much Bakelite do you have in your collection, and what is your favorite piece?
Well, I have a lot, and I posted a little bit on the Chatterbooks site. I have a lot of buttons, and as someone pointed out, and I think her name was Deborah, I'm sorry if I've got it wrong, but she pointed out that not all the buttons I pictured were Bakelite, and she was right. There was celluloid in there and some other vintage plastics, but I have a lot of Bakelite buttons. I have a lot of bracelets. A lot of these were gifts, and I treasure them. I have this pin that I'm going to hold up here, and this is probably my best piece of Bakelite, because It was my mother-in-law's, and her name was Elaine Rose. And if you can see it without me taking off my shirt entirely, then we've got a different kind of chat altogether. But it says ER, and her name was Elaine Rose. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe somebody in the group will be able to tell me the truth on this, I think you used to be able to go into a dime store or a little store, and they would make you a Bakelite initial pin. Because, you know, it was just
so
cheap
cool.
dime store. It was cheap dime store jewelry. So this, because it reminds me of my mother-in-law, and it's, you know, my Elaine pin, this is probably my favorite piece of Bakelite, at least for the time being. And, you know, when I'm not near the piece of Bakelite I love the piece of Bakelite I'm near. So, so for all of you who are now going to send me pieces of Bakelite, yours will be my favorite.
Okay, wait. I got to show her mine real quick.
Oh, please.
Okay.
We've been having a jewelry challenge, and we've had a bit of a chat about Bakelite this week.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
So these are my bangles.
Yes.
And then I have a couple of buttons. I'm pretty sure they're Bakelite.
You know, I think they are. I think they're that. And if they're not Bakelite, they're that kind of plastic. They're buttons I would collect. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They're that plastic made to look like tortoiseshell, and certainly some Bakelite was like that. But but if Deborah is watching this chat, either now or at some other time, she will tell you about those buttons, because she knows.
I'll have to post them in Chatterbooks. Is that where you guys were talking about it?
Yeah, where I posted it, and she said she's been collecting buttons for 20 years. So as a matter of fact, I told her after the chat was over, I wanted to contact her for a button expert in my area, because I would love to know what I have. I have a ton. You know, I think I sent you on the panel a picture of a tackle box, an open tackle box that's filled with buttons. And it's kind of amazing. I mean, you know, I just have gotten a lot. Oh, those are some pictures of my stuff that I sent earlier. And yeah, and that's just, you know, a sorter that I put little things in, yeah. But,
there's a tackle box.
There's a tackle box, and it's filled with buttons and little sewing collectibles. So I'd love to know a little bit more about my buttons. Oh, that's a good shot of my buttons. I like looking at the pictures of them, even as much as I like looking at them. That is a sickness. That is just.
I love this right here. This I love. I don't know if you can see the picture with all the little trinkety treasures in it. I love that.
And right there, the little people, those little wooden people, those were actually my daughter. You know, before I realized what a choking hazard they were, I gave my kids little things to play with all the time, realizing I was endangering them. And she had a little tiny wooden house with those little tiny wooden people. And I don't have the house anymore, and I don't have a lot of the stuff, but I have those little tiny wooden people. And now she's got a little girl, but we know that not to give them to her yet. You know, eventually she will have them, but that's my safe spot for little things.
So I'm going to grab a few of the comments and questions from the chat, and then we'll go back to the other ones. Kim Wynn wants to know, when is the next book?
Well, I have been promising for a long time, and I started number 9, and I had a plot outline vaguely for number 9, but I have kind of pulled back from it. I'm actually writing something else right now, and I keep promising, and for those who are from my Jane Wheel Facebook page who might be watching this or who might watch it later, I owe you an apology, because there are people who ask me periodically and often and frequently, you know, when is the next book? And I keep saying I'm on it, but to tell you the truth, I don't know. I think I'm going to be coming out. I think I'm going to put a Jane Wheel short story on my website just for free. And I've got a lot of easy way in stories on my website. They're called if you go to my website, which is SharonFiffer.com, there's a tab that says What I Learned at the Easy Way In. And those are little pieces of memoir about Don and Nellie. And they're very similar to the Jane Wheel stories, but they're real, you know. And so I can guide you there, and I'll probably do some Jane Wheel stories. But I may not do another Jane Wheel book. I think 8 feels like the right amount, and I don't want to push it too far. And I actually started a young adult, a middle school book about a child of picker parents who's terribly embarrassed about her parents and all the used things in her home. And I think I'm going to put my energies there with that book and with a few other things right now. So there's not a Jane Wheel book on the horizon. And if you read the whole series and you get to number 8, you can see that I left her in a really good place, I think, and so if I come back to her, she can be rebuilding and filling up that button factory.
Yeah, absolutely. So also in the chat, this is back when we were talking about the, picking up things. Treasure Find says, so true, Sharon. I think a lot of us try to fill up what's missing by finding stuff. Sad but true. Dewana Dial says, I feel the same way when I see old photos that have no family. She does genealogy, so it breaks her heart to see the treasures lost. And also, Sharon, when I see picture frames with a baby in it or another family member, it just makes me so sad. Saw one the other night. And Cindy says the post-mortem photos are the worst. Oh.
Gosh. Yes.
Okay, but you're talking about your your Facebook page. Pardon me. I wanted to know what made you choose to create a Facebook page for Jane Wheel rather than a Sharon Fiffer kind of fan page?
Well, I didn't. I'd like to give you a profound reason, but I mean, I am on Facebook as Sharon Fiffer. And when I decided to give Jane Wheel her page, it didn't even occur to me to call it like a fan page. It felt funny to say, like, come on, fans, join me.
Right.
I just thought maybe Jane Wheel could just post about going to a rummage sale or post her latest finds and talk that way. And I've had people say, well, Sharon, I would like to like your page, but I draw the line at liking the pages of fictional characters. Right. But I don't see why not, because like Maggie, I believe Jane Wheel is out there with me, scavenging, and I don't see why she shouldn't have her own page. I guess if I did another series of books or something like that, maybe I would do more of a fan page. But I have the website, and as I say, I am on Facebook as myself, although you'd be surprised how frequently Jane Wheel and Sharon Fiffer post the same thing on Facebook, when I'm feeling the need to post. So, but I like Jane Wheel kind of having her own identity out there.
All right, I'm going to skip a couple. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Somebody was talking. No? Okay. Okay. So I may skip a couple because we're pushing it here. I had a question about Belinda St. Germain. She sort of showed up in the book, but then when I wrote the question, do you secretly wish to be more like Belinda St. Germain? That was when I just thought she had written the book about like getting your life straight, but then she was an organizer too, and she was a this and that and the other thing. So
yes,
then I was like,
Belinda St. Germain has appeared in 3 books, and the first time she made an appearance was in The Wrong Stuff, which is book number 3, and Jane buys her book. She sees her on an Oprah show, and she buys her book because she's lost a permission slip of her son's in a pile of stuff. And she realizes, oh my God, I'm losing control of my life. I'm not a good mother. I'm not doing things right. So she decides she's going to follow Belinda St. Germain's book. Now, I had more people email me and ask me where they could get Belinda St. Germain's book. Now, I am Belinda St. Germain. I wrote her book, the decluttering book that's in The Wrong Stuff, and then in Hollywood Stuff, she wrote a book on she was how to navigate Hollywood and how to make your way in the celebrity world. And then in Lucky Stuff, she appears again as the personal guru for Lucky, how to get. I just liked having another character, to speak through. And so I guess because I wrote her, I'm a little bit her. And if anybody who knew me in 8th grade, I went to Limestone Grade School in Kankakee. If you knew Belinda Majorson or Debbie St. Germain, yes, I combined their names to make Belinda St. Germain. And I've certainly lost touch with them, for years ago. But I always thought if I named her that, maybe somebody would contact me and say, I knew you in 8th grade. I thought that was a fun thing to put out there. And so I have the opportunity now. But anyway, I just wanted somebody who had the alternative point of view. And anybody who out there who writes knows that when you're doing a close third person, or if it was a first person, it's very hard to get outside that head. You know, to say, like, you can't always be looking in the mirror and saying, oh, she brushed her brown hair, you know, in order to say what she looks like if you're caught in that person's character. So by creating an alternative character, I had somebody who could present a different point of view besides the character she knows.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the contest that we had in the group. You very graciously offered a signed copy of one of your books for the best sort of picker story. I can't remember exactly how it was worded.
Yeah. Best treasure hunting story or best picker story, yeah.
Yeah, so we had 3 entries, and you said they all 3 won.
Yeah, yep.
So I'm going to read them, if you don't mind.
Okay, great.
Okay, so the first one is our own beloved Angie, Miss Treasured Vintage. And if you don't know the mouse story, I'm sure most of us who are in the thrifting community in our little area know it, but I'm going to read Angie's response. Okay, here goes. Angie wrote, oh, okay. Well, it's a long story, but here it goes. One day while periscoping, I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I kept hearing something. I thought y'all were talking. Sorry. So one day while periscoping, I happened upon an awesome yard sale complete with tables of vintage items and 2 vintage ladies. I should preface the story with this. My vision was rapidly deteriorating due to a big old cataract. I remarked, I love this yard sale. And I was chatting with my Periscope peeps while showing them the stuff on the tables. Now, Periscope is a live streaming app on your phone, so it's live, you know, and so she's live talking to us. And she said she was showing her peeps all this stuff on the tables, all vintage goodies. Looked like they'd been dragged out of the shed or basement and had been there since Hector was a pup. In other words, a long, long time. So I'm looking at the contents of the box with the vintage hankies. One bunch I picked up looked rather like a rosette or maybe something that someone had crafted. So I'm holding it in the air, showing it on Periscope, just for the lady. Oh, what is this, I say? Looks like someone made... Looks like someone made sort of a flower from hanky. Meanwhile, a mouse's tail is swinging all around. Oh, mouse's tail. The ladies exclaim, "Oh no, that's a dead mouse you're holding!" LOL. After the horror of it all, I could not stop laughing. The best part was it was captured on Periscope. My Periscope peeps said the ladies should have given me whatever I wanted on the table for free. I agree, but the story was a surprise in itself. that was the best. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, Maggie, you can tell yours?
Oh, I think I told this story of how we have a black SUV. So when we're out yard sailing, I just always go up to the first, and there's always a black SUV sitting at the curb. So whenever my husband's standing outside the door laughing, because I don't know how many times I've gotten into the car and then realized this is not my car and get out, except the one time I got in and I'm getting in and there was this guy sitting in the driver's seat. And I just looked at him and I think he said something, I'm sorry, I apologize, and he said something to me like, oh, that's okay, you're the best thing I've ever found at a yard sale. And I told Angie that I'm an old gal and he was a young guy, so I think he should win the prize for flattery.
Oh.
I do it all the time. And I say to my husband, why don't you tell me stop? And he just thinks it's so funny. He never stops me.
Okay, and then the third entry we had was from Cynthia Strayer Villarreal, and her story is about searching down the book. So it was a treasure hunting for the book. So here's my story of finding lucky stuff. Not that interesting, but shows my dedication to thriftiness. First, I searched every used bookstore in my area. Interestingly, every store was familiar with Sharon Fiffer and her work, but they had not had one of her books available. That told me that I was in for a treat, as buyers must hold on to them, and they sell out the very day one arrives. I had not been to my local library in years, though my children and I spent many a day at the library. They are now grown with their own families, so just hadn't been. I decided to get online and see what's new, and boy, was I in for a surprise. I was able to set up an account with my 30-year-old library card number, maneuver around the website like a boss, and they were willing to find lucky stuff, send it to the library of my choice, and hold it for me. When I went to pick it up, I see now one can check out one's own books. Of course, I tried scanning the wrong barcode, so I had to get some help. Thanks for the contest, Sharon. Can't wait to meet you online.
That's so wonderful. And anything that sends somebody to the library is that's terrific. I mean, I'm a big fan. And for those of you who love to support writers and think that going to the library doesn't support writers, you're wrong. It really does. Especially if there's a list at the library that if 5 people request your book, at least in the old days, I don't know whether budgets have been cut it so much, but if there were 5 requests, then they ordered another copy. And so I don't care who buys the book. I just like having it out there. So I love the fact that people get it from the library, and I love to speak at libraries. So I'm a big fan of that. So that's a wonderful story too. Yes,
absolutely. And I'm actually in a book club in the town next over's library. So I love it. I love it. Okay, so Tonya, do you have a couple more minutes? I'm going to sign us out.
Yeah.
Okay, so Angie and Cynthia Strayer-Villarreal, message me on Facebook your address, and I'll get it to Sharon to send you a copy of one of their books.
Yes, it'll be random, so it may not be, it probably won't be lucky stuff. It might be, though, if that's okay, and I'll sign them.
Okay, and then I need to tell you what the book is going to be for next month. So if you are not, go over to Facebook and join Chatterbooks on the Facebook group, because that's where we have a running thread with people suggesting books, and then I'll go through and choose 3 or 4 of them, and we vote to see which one's coming up next. So we voted for this month, and where's my screen share? Here it is. I've never read this one, so I'm excited. Oh gosh, my screen share is not working again. Here it comes. Ta-da! The book that got the most votes was The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. I think I'm saying that right. So here it is. And I'll read the little quick synopsis. A.J. Fikry's life is not at all what he expected it to be. He lives alone. His bookstore is experiencing the worst sales in its history. And now his prized possession, a rare collection of Poe poems, has been stolen. But when a mysterious package appears at the bookstore, its unexpected arrival gives Fikry the chance to make his life over and see everything anew. Boy, that sounds like a similar theme, huh?
I think you're on a theme.
Yeah. So that's the book. I have links down at the bottom. Is that you, Tonya? Okay.
Yeah.
I do have links down on the bottom. They are affiliate links, and what affiliate links are is like a finder's fee. So you click on it, it takes you there. You buy it, you don't buy it. It costs the same, but if you buy it using my link, then I think it's like 30 cents or something like that. It's like a finder's fee kind of thing, if you choose to. If not, go to your local library if you're not going to get it free, because free is always better too. Okay. And I feel like there was something else I was going to say. Oh gosh. Oh, I wrote notes, thank goodness. Okay, so we have the thread. I talked about that, the suggestions. Okay, the panel. So every month we are going to change the panel or have the same people, just depending. And if you are interested in joining the panel for next month's book, let me know in the Facebook group that we have a thread going for that as well, and we can get a new panel going for next time. And I think that's it. Do you guys want to say anything before we sign out?
Thank you. Thank you.
Maggie?
I just wanted to say thank you to Sharon. It was just such an honor to meet you. And also you gals, Margaret and Tonya, my YouTube celebrities. It was a great thing to be a part of, and I really appreciate you asking me.
No, I appreciate you coming up with the amazing idea. And Tonya?
Yes, it was so nice to meet you, Sharon, and Maggie, too.
Yes, yes. All right, so thanks again. Thank you so much, Sharon, for coming over and talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was an honor. It really was.
Great. And thank you all of our viewers. I think we're up to 30 at one point. We have 27 live viewers. And this will be available to watch after the fact, so it will be on the YouTube forever. Okay, thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you later.